A single father came to the aid of a fainted woman in the street, unaware that she was his new boss. When they discovered this, they were swept away by a passion that changed everything. A story of fate and unexpected love that will quicken your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment where you are watching from. The March afternoon suffocated New York City with a humid heat that clung to the skin like a second layer. In Chinatown, the air carried an unmistakable mix of frying tempura and boiling soy sauce from the eateries lining Canal Street. David Smith, 34, hurried along the uneven sidewalk, firmly holding the small hand of his daughter Lily, 8, whom he had just picked up from Maplewood Elementary School. "Daddy, you're sweating a lot," Lily observed, adjusting her pink backpack as she tried to keep up with her father's long strides. David loosened the knot of his navy blue tie, feeling the fabric of his dress shirt sticking to his back. He had been a mechanical engineer for over 10 years, but the last 8 months of unemployment had left visible marks on his angular face. The wrinkles around his brown eyes deepened, and his black hair began to show grey strands at the temples. His broad shoulders, shaped by years of working with heavy machinery, now bore the invisible weight of the responsibility of raising a daughter alone. "It's just the heat, Princess. Let's stop by the pharmacy quickly to get your cough syrup, and then we can have some ice cream. How does that sound?" Lily's eyes sparkled. She had inherited her mother's curly hair, but had her father's determined gaze. Despite her young age, she displayed a maturity that David sometimes found concerning, an inevitable consequence of having witnessed too many adult discussions during the tumultuous divorce. They were passing in front of St. Mary's Hospital when David noticed movement ahead of him. An elegant woman, dressed in a beige blazer and a black pencil skirt, was dangerously swaying close to the curb. She appeared to be in her 40s, with wavy blonde hair pinned in a bun that was beginning to unravel, and she carried a brown leather briefcase that slipped from her hands. "Daddy, look at that lady!" Lily pointed, worried. Before David could respond, the woman collapsed. Her slender body folded like a rag doll, and she fell heavily onto the cobblestone sidewalk, the briefcase opening and scattering papers across the ground. "Lily, stay here!" David released his daughter's hand and ran the few meters that separated him from the woman. He knelt beside her, placing one hand under her neck to protect her from the hot concrete. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her skin was pale and damp with sweat. David quickly checked to see if she was breathing. Yes, her chest rose and fell regularly. Carefully, he positioned her on her side, recalling the first aid lessons he had taken at his previous job. "Can someone call an ambulance?" he shouted to the bystanders who were starting to gather. Several people took out their phones, but a nurse exiting the hospital was already rushing toward them. The woman began to moan softly, her eyelids fluttering. When she finally opened her eyes, David found himself looking directly into green irises reminiscent of the sea off the coast of California. For a moment she seemed completely lost, as if she didn't know where she was or who she was. "Hey, take it easy. You fainted, but you're safe now," David said, his naturally low voice taking on an even softer tone. "I'm David. What's your name?" I... She tried to sit up, but David gently kept her lying down. Her cheeks flushed a deep red. "Oh my God, how embarrassing. I'm so sorry, really. This has never happened before." The accent was unmistakably New York, with that characteristic sharp S and the soft R that made the words more melodic. "You don't need to apologize. It happens to anyone. Were you hungry, thirsty? Did you feel any pain?" The nurse approached, a woman in her 50s, and began checking the woman's vital signs. "Blood pressure is a bit low, but nothing concerning." "Ma'am, when was the last time you ate?" The blonde woman tried to get up again, this time with more success, leaning on David's strong arm. "I think it was last night. I've been really nervous, moving to a new city, new job." She looked around, realizing the small crowd that had formed. "Please, I don't need an ambulance. I'm already feeling better." "Don't be stubborn," David said, helping her to her feet. She was shorter than him, about 5'3", and even wearing high heels, her head barely reached his chest. The hospital is right next door. Let's just check if everything is okay. I really can't. I have important things to take care of today. She tried to take a step, and her legs visibly trembled. David held her by the elbows, feeling how fragile she was beneath the structured blazer. "Daddy, she's as pale as paper," Lily observed, having approached carrying the papers that had fallen from the briefcase. "Do you want a chocolate? It always makes me feel better when I'm feeling sick." The woman smiled for the first time, and David noticed how her entire face transformed. "Thank you, dear. What's your name?" "Lily. And this is my daddy, David. He always helps people. One time he saved a cat that was stuck in the tree of our apartment building." "Princess, I think that story can wait," David said, but he was smiling too. To the woman, he added, "Seriously, let's just go to the emergency room. 5 minutes. If the doctor says you're fine, I promise I won't insist anymore." She hesitated, biting her lower lip. David could see the internal conflict in her eyes, pride battling necessity, independence against vulnerability. "All right," she finally conceded, "but only because you were so kind. And I'll pay for whatever is necessary." "You don't need to pay. Nothing. The public health system works for everyone," David said, offering his arm for support. "What's your name again? You didn't tell me." "Marina," she replied after a brief pause. "Marina Johnson." D. As they walked slowly toward the entrance of the hospital, David couldn't help but notice small details about Marina. Her nails were perfectly manicured in a nude pink shade. Her perfume was subtle yet elegant, something floral and sophisticated that contrasted with the smell of Japanese food from the street. The leather bag was from an expensive brand he recognized from store windows on Fifth Avenue. Everything about her screamed upper-class, professional success. "You're not from New York, are you?" Lily asked, swinging her free hand as they walked. "No, I'm from Rio. I just moved here. Actually, today was supposed to be my first day at a new job, but—" Marina gestured vaguely, as if she didn't know how to explain the whole situation. "What kind of job?" David asked, genuinely curious. "Administration, management, boring office stuff," she replied evasively, looking at the ground. In the emergency room, David insisted on waiting throughout the appointment, ignoring Marina's polite protests. Lily behaved impeccably, doodling on the backs of old papers she found in her bag and whispering stories to entertain herself. 2 hours later, when Marina emerged from the consultation with a prescription for vitamins and advice on better eating habits, the sun was already setting. The New York sky was taking on orange hues between the tall buildings of the neighborhood. "The doctor said it's just stress and poor nutrition. Nothing serious," she informed, looking relieved and embarrassed at the same time. "I really don't know how to thank you both." "You don't need to thank us," David said, checking his watch. "Look, it's getting late and you probably shouldn't drive yet. Do you want us to call an Uber, or if you live nearby?" "I'm staying at a hotel in Chinatown. I think I can walk." Marina hesitated again, as if she wanted to say something more but didn't know how. "Then let's walk together. Our place is in Brooklyn, so we'll pass by there anyway," David lied. In reality, they would need to take 2 buses to get home, but something about Marina's vulnerable demeanor made him want to ensure she got to the hotel safely. During the 10-minute walk to the Chinatown Hotel, Lily chatted about school, her favorite drawings, and how she liked helping her dad cook on weekends. Marina listened with genuine attention, asking questions and making comments that showed she truly cared about what the girl was saying. "Do you have kids?" Lily asked directly, with the natural curiosity of children. Marina stopped walking for a second, a shadow passing quickly over her eyes. "No, I've never had any." "Why not? You're nice. You'd be a good mom." "Lily," David gently reprimanded, "not everyone wants to have kids, sweetheart. And that's perfectly normal." No, it's okay, Marina said, bending down to be at Lily's height. Thank you for the compliment. You're a very special girl, you know. Your dad is very lucky. In the hotel lobby, Marina finally allowed herself to relax. Well, we've arrived. Thank you so much. You saved my life today, literally. It was a pleasure meeting you, David said, extending his hand for a formal handshake. When their fingers touched, both felt a small electric current. Nothing too obvious, but definitely present. Marina, she said as he was turning to leave, if you'd like to grab a coffee someday so I can thank you properly, that would be great. David smiled, that shy smile that appeared when he was genuinely touched by something. That would be great indeed. But you don't owe us anything, you know. What we did today, anyone would do. Not everyone, Marina replied softly, looking directly into his eyes. Not everyone stops to help a stranger on the street these days. As they walked back to the bus stop, Lily held her dad's hand and asked, "Dad, did you like Marina?" David thought about the question for a moment, remembering her green eyes, how genuinely kind she had been to Lily, how she seemed both strong and fragile at the same time. "Yes, sweetheart, I think I liked her." Neither of them imagined that 3 weeks later their lives would cross again in a completely unexpected way. 3 weeks later, David woke up at 5:30 in the morning with his stomach tied in knots of nervousness. It was his first day at Techmac Industrial Equipment, a German multinational based in Midtown Manhattan, and he couldn't decide between the blue tie or the burgundy one. He opted for the blue, the same one he wore the day he met Marina. "Dad, you're more nervous than I was on my first day of school," Lily observed, chewing on a toast with cream cheese while swinging her legs in the kitchen chair. The two-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn was modest, but cozy, with furniture that David had gradually bought over the 2 years since the divorce. "It's been a long time since I've worked, sweetheart. 8 months is quite a while." David drank his black coffee, trying to calm his nerves. His beard was perfectly trimmed, his hair styled with gel, and he had ironed his shirt 3 times until he was satisfied. "You're going to do great. You're the best engineer in the world," Lily said, with the absolute confidence that only a daughter can have in her father. The commute to the company took an hour and 20 minutes, 2 buses and a 15-minute walk. David arrived 15 minutes early and took the opportunity to observe the 20-story mirrored building. In the white marble lobby, well-dressed executives came and went, carrying leather briefcases and talking on phones. Everything was very different from the small metal shop where he had worked before. "David Smith," a blonde receptionist greeted him with a smile. "Welcome to Techmac. Mr. Müller is waiting for you." "In the 15th floor." Klaus Meyer, the engineering director, was a tall and slender German who spoke English with a heavy accent but impressive technical precision. He led David Smith on a tour of the facilities, testing labs, design rooms with state-of-the-art computers, and workshops that made his eyes shine with admiration. "Our focus now is on renewable energy equipment," Klaus explained as they walked. "Wind turbines, solar systems, large-scale batteries. The US market is booming and we need experienced professionals." David felt his confidence gradually returning. His technical questions impressed Klaus, and soon they were discussing future projects like old colleagues. It was almost 11 o'clock when Klaus looked at his watch. We have an important meeting now. Our new CEO arrived last week from Los Angeles. She will present the strategic plan for the next 2 years. They entered the meeting room on the 16th floor, a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. About 20 people were already seated around the glass table, all quietly chatting while flipping through reports. "Everyone," Klaus clapped his hands to get attention, "I would like to introduce David Smith, our new senior special projects engineer." David waved shyly and chose a chair in the middle of the table. He was pouring himself coffee when the door opened and a familiar figure entered the room. Marina. She wore a perfectly tailored charcoal grey suit, her blonde hair pulled back into a flawless bun, and carried a leather portfolio, the same one he had helped gather papers 3 weeks earlier. Her eyes scanned the room, greeting each person present until they found his. The shock was mutual and evident. Marina paused for a fraction of a second, her upright posture wavering almost imperceptibly. David felt the hot coffee burn his throat as he tried to swallow at the wrong moment. "Good morning, everyone," Marina said, quickly regaining her professional composure. Her voice was different, firmer, with the natural authority of someone used to leading. "I am Marina Johnson, the new CEO. It's a pleasure to meet each of you." David could barely process what was happening. Marina, the fragile woman who had fainted in his arms, who seemed lost and vulnerable, was there, commanding a room full of experienced executives with the ease of someone born for it. She began the presentation by connecting her laptop to the projector, and David noticed her hands trembling slightly. It was the only sign of nervousness she allowed herself to show. "TechMac is going through a crucial moment," Marina began, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "The US renewable energy market has grown 300% in the last 3 years, but our share has decreased. It's time for a complete overhaul." The slides showed impressive graphs, detailed market analyses, and ambitious financial projections. David found himself genuinely impressed by the depth of the analysis. This was not the same insecure woman from 3 weeks ago, or maybe it was, but showing a completely different facet. "Our focus will be on developing equipment specifically adapted to US conditions," Marina continued, clicking to the next slide. "Systems that work well in the tropical climate, that are economically viable for medium-sized businesses, and that can be maintained with local technology." During the presentation, her and David's eyes crossed several times. Each time, there was a tension in the air that David was sure others could feel. He forced himself to concentrate on the content, taking notes and trying to appear professional. "We have 3 priority projects," Marina announced. "First, developing medium-sized wind turbines for the Southeast. Second, solar energy storage systems for industries in Los Angeles. Third, hybrid equipment that combines solar and wind energy for rural properties." Charles Harris, a 50-year-old veteran engineer who had worked at the company for 15 years, raised his hand. "With all due respect, Director, these projects are very ambitious. Our current team has limited experience in renewable energy." Marina smiled, not a condescending smile, but genuinely confident. "That's why we hired new professionals with specific experience in these areas. David, for example, worked for 5 years developing solar energy systems for metallurgical industries." David felt all eyes turn to him. "It's true," he confirmed, trying to keep his voice steady. "I developed a system that reduced energy costs by 60% for 3 large factories." "Perfect," Marina said, her eyes meeting his once again. "David will be the technical lead for the solar storage project. He will have a team of 6 engineers and an 8-month deadline to develop the prototype." Murmurs spread through the room. It was a huge responsibility for someone who had just arrived. Sarah Roberts, the HR manager, frowned. "Marina, wouldn't it be more prudent for David to start as a team member? He is still adapting to our processes." "Processes can be learned," Marina cut in, her voice gaining an edge that David recognized from the determined woman who insisted on walking alone to the hotel. "Talent and experience cannot. David has exactly the vision we need for this project." The meeting continued for another hour, with Marina detailing schedules, budgets, and expectations. David actively participated, asking technical questions and suggesting modifications that showcased his experience. Gradually, the initial embarrassment gave way to professional enthusiasm. When the meeting ended, people filed out slowly, discussing the new projects in small groups. David organized his papers slowly, waiting for the room to empty. Marina did the same, disconnecting her laptop and arranging her documents with precise movements. Finally, They were alone. "So," Marina said, her voice returning to the softer tone he remembered. "What a surprise to find you here." "Marina, or should I say, Director Johnson?" David smiled nervously. "I had no idea. When you said you worked in management—" "I didn't technically lie," she replied, a small smile playing on her lips. "I just didn't mention that I manage entire companies." They looked at each other for a moment. The air was heavy with unasked questions and mutual recognition. "How is Lily?" Marina asked. "Has she adapted well since that day?" "She asked about you several times. She wanted to know if the cool lady was feeling better." David hesitated. "And you? How have you been feeling? Are you eating properly?" Marina laughed, a genuine sound that warmed David's heart. "Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. That day was complicated. A lot of stress with the move, anxiety about this job. It wasn't typical of me." "Everyone has tough days," David said, "especially during big changes in life." "That's true." Marina grabbed her folder and headed for the door, but stopped before leaving. "David?" "Yes?" "About your promotion to project leader, it was based purely on your resume and experience. I don't want you or anyone in this company to think it was for any other reasons." David nodded, appreciating her clarity. "I understand, and thank you for the opportunity. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Marina said, and there was something in her voice that suggested she knew more about him than she could have learned in just a first casual meeting. When she left the room, David stood still for a few minutes, processing everything that had happened. His professional life had just taken an incredible turn, but now he had a completely different problem to solve. How to maintain a strictly professional relationship with a woman he couldn't get out of his head for 3 weeks. The first weeks of April brought an intense routine for David. He arrived at the office at 7 in the morning and often left after 6, immersed in the technical details of the solar storage project. His team consisted of 6 experienced engineers, including Charles Harris, who initially showed skepticism about the leadership of a newbie. "David, these efficiency calculations don't align with the German standards," Charles said during a technical meeting on Thursday, pointing to the graphs on the screen. At 50, with graying hair and gold-framed glasses, he had the authority of someone who had built his career brick by brick. "Because we are not following German standards," David replied patiently, adjusting the glasses he had started wearing to work on the computer. "The Brazilian climate requires adaptations. The humidity here is 40% higher than the European average, and we have thermal variations they can't even imagine." Paula Miller, a 30-year-old electrical engineer with a master's degree in renewable energy, supported David. "He's right, Charles. I've worked on projects that failed because they copied European solutions without adapting." The project room on the 15th floor had become David's second home. The walls were covered with whiteboards filled with equations, diagrams, and schedules written in his small, precise handwriting. 3-dimensional models of batteries and solar panels occupied 2 tables, and the constant smell of strong coffee permeated the environment. Marina appeared in the room at least 3 times a week, always with the excuse of checking on the project's progress. Her visits created a palpable tension that the whole team could feel. She wore impeccable suits in neutral tones, grey, beige, navy blue, and always carried a small leather notebook where she took notes in elegant handwriting. "How are the thermal resistance tests going?" she asked on a sunny Tuesday, stopping by the table where David was examining printed circuits with a professional magnifying glass. "Better than expected," David replied without looking up, but aware that she was close enough for him to smell her subtle perfume. "The batteries maintain 85% capacity even at 45 degrees, well above the international standard." "Excellent." "And the schedule?" 3 weeks ahead." This time he looked at her, noticing how her green eyes sparkled when she received good news. "If we keep this pace, we'll have the prototype ready by July." Marina smiled, a professional smile, but David caught something warmer behind her executive mask. Great job. You and your team are exceeding all expectations. Charles, who was observing the interaction from across the room, murmured something to Paula that David couldn't hear, but from her expression, it wasn't anything positive. On Friday of that week, David was working alone in the project room when Marina appeared at 7 in the evening. The office was almost empty, only a few lights still on in the upper floors of the building. "Do you always work this late?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. She had changed from her suit into a blue silk blouse and black dress pants, and her hair was loose, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. "Only when I'm excited about something," David admitted, taking off his glasses and rubbing his tired eyes. "And this project is, well, it's exactly the kind of challenge I've always wanted to face." Marina entered the room, closing the door behind her. "Can I see?" David hesitated for a moment, then gestured for her to come closer to the table. "This is the core of the system," he explained, pointing to a metallic cylinder the size of a thermos. "We managed to triple the storage density using a special alloy I developed based on my previous studies." Marina leaned in to examine the device, and David felt her proximity like an electric current. Their fingers brushed when she picked up the cylinder for a closer look. "It's impressive," she murmured, genuinely fascinated. "Did you design this by yourself?" "With help from the team, of course, but the base idea—" David smiled shyly. "Yes, that was mine." They stood in silence for a moment, both looking at the prototype, but David knew Marina's mind was elsewhere. "Marina," he said softly, "we need to talk about this." "This what?" she asked, but her voice lost some of its usual firmness. "You know what? This tension between us. The team is noticing. Charles made a comment today that worried me." So Marina straightened up immediately, the professional mask returning to place. "What kind of comment?" "That maybe my promotion had personal motivations." David chose his words carefully. "I know it's not true, and you know it's not true, but appearances are exactly that." "Appearances," Marina cut in, her voice taking on a sharp edge. "My decision was based on technical competence, period. If Charles or anyone else has a problem with that, they can come talk to me directly." "Marina, I'm not questioning your decision. I'm grateful for it. I just think we need to be more careful about how we interact here in the office." Marina stared at him for a long moment, and David could see the conflict in her eyes, the strict executive battling something more personal. "You're right," she finally admitted. "I'll be more discreet in my visits to your team, communication only via email and scheduled formal meetings. It doesn't have to be that drastic." "Yes, it does." Marina grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "Good night, David. Good work today." After she left, David was alone in the quiet room, looking at the prototype in his hands. He knew they had made the right decision, but he couldn't shake a feeling of loss. The following Monday, the change in dynamics was immediately noticeable. Marina was adhering exactly to what she promised. Communication only via email, formal visits scheduled in advance. During progress meetings, she maintained an impeccable professional distance, asking precise technical questions and offering constructive feedback, but without the warm closeness that David had begun to expect. The team noticed the change too. Paula casually commented, "The director has been more formal lately. Do you know if something happened?" "I think it's just project pressure," David lied, focusing intently on the schematics on his computer screen. But the professional tension had an unexpected effect. David's work improved even more. Channeling the unresolved emotional energy into the project, he developed innovative solutions that even impressed Klaus Meyer. "Ah, David," Klaus said one April morning, examining the latest test results. "This cooling system you developed, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You should present this at the conference in Berlin next year." It was during these mornings of professional success that David felt the proudest. He had proven he deserved the opportunity that Marina had given him, regardless of the circumstances of how they met. But the afternoons were harder, especially when he saw Marina walking down the hall, always elegant, always focused, always distant. He wondered if she thought of him as anything more than a talented subordinate, or if she had completely compartmentalized her feelings. On the last Friday of April, David was leaving the office when he ran into Marina in the elevator. They were alone for the first time in 2 weeks. "How is Lily?" Marina asked as the doors closed, her voice softer than during their professional interactions. "She's well. She asks about you sometimes, wants to know when she'll see the nice lady who makes brigadeiros." Marina smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. "Did you tell her I make brigadeiros?" She guessed. "She said you looked like someone who knows how to make sweets." David laughed. "She has these theories about people." "She's not wrong. I learned to make brigadeiros with my grandmother in Rio. It was our Sunday tradition." The elevator stopped on the ground floor, but neither of them moved immediately when the doors opened. "David," Marina said softly, "you know this is complicated, right?" "I know," he replied, meeting her gaze. "But that doesn't make it easier." The elevator doors began to close again, and both stepped out quickly, the moment broken by practical reality. "Have a good weekend," Marina said, returning to her professional tone. "You too." As he walked to the bus stop, David reflected on how ironic life could be. He finally had his dream job, leading a project that could change his career, and he was working with a woman he admired both professionally and personally. And precisely because of that, he could do nothing but keep his distance, at least for now. May arrived with the traditional June festivities, and Tecmac was no exception. Marina, trying to integrate into the American culture, enthusiastically approved Sarah Roberts' suggestion to organize a summer party at the Riverside Club for all employees and their families. "It will be a great opportunity to strengthen team spirit," Marina announced during the weekly board meeting, her words laced with the New Yorker accent she could never completely disguise when excited. David received the invitation via email, like all the other employees, but hesitated to confirm his attendance. Taking Lily meant prolonging contact with Marina outside the work environment, something they had both agreed to avoid. But when Lily found out about the party, her eyes sparkled with excitement that he didn't have the heart to disappoint. "Daddy, will there be a real square dance, and hot cider, and fishing?" Lily bounced on the sofa in their Brooklyn apartment, still wearing her school uniform. Her braids swayed with every movement, and David couldn't resist his daughter's enthusiasm. "There will be all that and more, Princess. But you'll have to wear a country dress." "Cool! Can we buy one at the market on Saturday?" The following Saturday, father and daughter wandered through the stalls at the local market in Brooklyn looking for suitable outfits. David opted for a red and white checkered shirt, jeans and a straw hat that Lily insisted made him look just like a real country guy. For her, they found a floral dress, knee-high socks and black flats. "Daddy, do you think Ms. Marina will be there?" Lily asked while trying on the straw hat adorned with colorful ribbons. "Probably. She's the director of the company," David replied, trying to sound casual. "Why do you ask?" "Because I like her. She has kind eyes, just like yours." The party took place on a Friday in May, starting at 7 in the evening. The Riverside Club was decorated with colorful bunting, red and yellow bandanas, and wooden stalls that simulated an authentic country fair. The air was filled with the smell of popcorn, peanut candy, and roasted peanuts, mixed with the sound of a trio of accordion players playing traditional country music. David arrived at 7:30, holding Lily's hand as she looked around in fascination. She had never been to a real county fair, only to simpler school versions. "Wow, Dad, look at all the bunting." Lily pointed to the decorations hanging between the trees of the club. "And look at that fishing booth. Can I try?" "Of course, Princess. But first, let's say hi to the folks from the company." David recognized several colleagues, all dressed for the occasion. Klaus Meyer was almost unrecognizable in a green plaid shirt, suspenders, and a fake mustache that made him look like a country farmer. Paula Miller wore a blue floral dress with ruffles, and even Charles Harris had joined in with a red shirt and leather pants. "David," Paula waved, approaching with a steaming mug of hot apple cider in her hands. "Lily looks beautiful. What a cute dress." "Thank you, Aunt Paula," Lily replied politely, but her eyes kept searching for something, or someone, in the crowd. That's when Marina appeared. David saw her before she noticed them, coming out from behind one of the food stalls. She wore a floral dress that accentuated her green eyes, her blonde hair braided into 2 pigtails adorned with red ribbons. It was the first time David had seen her in anything other than business attire, and the impact was overwhelming. "Aunt Marina!" Lily shouted, letting go of her father's hand and running toward her before David could protest. Marina bent down to receive Lily, who hugged her with the familiarity of a child unbothered by social awkwardness. "Lily, what a wonderful surprise," Marina said, and David could see that her joy was genuine. "You look so beautiful, like a real country girl." "You too. That dress is very pretty. My dad said you would be here." Marina looked over Lily's head and met David's eyes as he approached with an embarrassed smile. "Good evening, Marina. You look very lovely," he said, immediately regretting not being able to maintain a more formal tone. "Thank you. You both look great too." Marina smiled, and for a moment all the professional tension of the past weeks seemed to evaporate. "Lily, do you want to check out the booths? There's fishing, ring toss, and even a cotton candy machine." "Can I, Dad? Please?" David nodded, and the 3 began walking together among the attractions. Lily ran from booth to booth, trying all the games with the typical enthusiasm of an 8-year-old. Marina proved surprisingly skilled at fishing, winning a stuffed bear that she gifted to Lily. "How are you so good at this?" David asked, impressed. "My grandma used to take me to the county fairs in a small town when I was little. I learned all the tricks." Marina laughed, and David noticed how her New Yorker accent became more pronounced when she was relaxed. As the night progressed, the fair became livelier. The trio of accordion players was replaced by a full country band, and couples began to dance on the makeshift floor in front of the stage. Lily watched, fascinated, clapping along to the rhythm of the music. "Dad, aren't you going to dance with Aunt Marina?" she asked loudly enough for several people around to hear, including Marina herself. "Lily," David scolded, blushing intensely. "But everyone is dancing. And do you both know how to dance?" Marina laughed, clearly amused by David's embarrassment. "Actually, I never learned country dancing. In New York, I dance more jazz and pop music. My dad dances really well. He taught me some steps at home. Right, Dad?" David was about to make up an excuse when the band announced, "Now it's time for the traditional square dance. All couples to the floor. Let's form the lines." "Square dance!" Lily jumped with joy. "Dad, you have to dance. It's tradition." Other people from the company were pairing up. Klaus dragged Sarah Roberts to the floor. Paul from accounting convinced his shy wife to join, and even Charles was trying to remember the steps with a staff member from the purchasing department. "Come on, David," Paul shouted from the floor. "You can't leave the director without a partner." David looked at Marina, who was visibly torn between embarrassment and curiosity. "Do you want to?" he asked quietly. "It's just a square dance. Traditional, nothing too serious." Marina hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Why not? When in Rome—" They positioned themselves in line with 6 other couples. David placed his right hand on Marina's back, holding her left hand with his left, in the traditional square dance position. The physical contact, even innocent, sent an electric current through his body. "Just follow my movements," he murmured as the accordion player began to explain the basic steps. The music started, and the caller shouted, "Look at the snake, it's a lie! Swing, path to the field!" Marina followed David awkwardly at first, slightly stumbling on the more complicated steps. But she learned quickly, and soon she was smiling as they twirled and switched partners according to the calls. Walk, big circle, tunnel. During the tunnel, when the couples formed arches, with their arms raised for others to pass under, David and Marina found themselves face to face, closer than they had been in weeks. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the rest of the world disappeared. "You're doing really well," David said, his voice low and intimate despite the loud music. "I have a good teacher," Marina replied, and there was something in her voice that had nothing to do with square dancing. Couple dance, each with their partner. The couple dance required the pairs to dance together in small circles, hands intertwined, spinning slowly. It was the most intimate moment of the square dance arrived, and David felt the soft scent of Marina, heard her slightly breathless from the effort of dancing. "Marina," he began to say, but was interrupted by the announcer. "Big final circle. Everyone hold hands." The square dance ended with all participants in a large circle, raising their joined arms as the band played the final chord. Applause and cheers echoed through the club, and Lily ran to hug both of them. "You dance so well. You look like a real couple." David and Marina exchanged glances over Lily's head, both still breathless and with flushed faces. The tension between them had shifted. It was no longer purely professional or awkward. There was something new, a shared intimacy that went beyond what any work meeting could create. "Shall we grab some hot apple cider?" Marina suggested. "I'm so thirsty." They headed to the beverage booth, where an elderly man served the traditional drink in aluminum mugs. The hot apple cider was perfectly spiced with cloves, cinnamon, and a splash of whiskey, warming their bodies against the cool May breeze. "So," Marina said, leaning against the booth counter, "how's it been working at Tecmac? Are you enjoying it?" "It's been amazing," David replied honestly. "The project is exactly the kind of challenge I've always wanted, and the team, despite some initial reservations from a few, is working really well." Charles's reservations. David hesitated, then decided to be straightforward. "He still thinks my promotion was irregular." Marina sighed. "I know. Sarah told me he made some comments. But David, you need to know that your promotion was based purely on your merit. I personally reviewed all the candidates' resumes. I know that. My work speaks for itself." David took a sip of the hot apple cider. "But you understand the delicate position this puts us in." "I do." Marina fell silent for a moment, watching Lily, who was trying to win a goldfish at the fishing booth. "David, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure." Do you feel anything beyond professional admiration? For me, I mean." The question caught David completely off guard. He nearly choked on the hot apple cider and took a few seconds to regain his composure. "Marina, that's—" "Sorry," she said quickly. "I shouldn't have asked. It's just that I've felt a tension between us that goes beyond professional, and I don't know if I'm imagining things." David looked at her, really looked. He saw the vulnerability behind the executive mask, the insecure woman who had fainted in his arms 2 months ago. He also saw the competent professional who had given him an opportunity when he needed it most. "You're not imagining it," he finally admitted, "and it scares me." "Why?" "Because I have a daughter who needs stability, because I finally have a job I love, because you're my boss, and that complicates everything." David paused, choosing his words carefully. "And because I've been hurt before by trusting someone too much." Marina nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Your ex-wife. She left me when I was unemployed. She said she couldn't carry the weight of a family alone. It took me 2 years to trust people again." "I'm sorry," Marina said sincerely. "That must have been very hard." It was, especially for Lily. She still has nightmares sometimes, thinking everyone she loves will leave. They fell silent, watching Lily, who finally managed to catch a goldfish and was celebrating with excited claps. "David," Marina said softly, "I'm not going anywhere, not from work, not from Los Angeles. This is my new life." Why did you come to Los Angeles? Did you leave everything in New York? Marina took a deep breath. Because I was also hurt by trusting too much. My ex-husband, he married me for my family's money. I found out after 12 years that he had several mistresses and was embezzling funds from my father's company. Her voice trembled slightly. When I divorced, I wanted to start over far from all that. Los Angeles was the opportunity to prove that I'm capable without my family name. David looked at her with new understanding. So we're both here trying to start over. Exactly. Lily ran back to them, proudly holding a plastic bag with the goldfish. Look, I got it. Can I name him? Of course, Princess. What name do you want to give him? Lily looked thoughtfully at the fish, then at Marina, then at her father. Hope, she finally said, because today was a day full of hope. David and Marina exchanged glances, both touched by the innocent wisdom of an 8-year-old who, unknowingly, had named exactly what they were both feeling. June arrived with the typical cold of Los Angeles winter and a devastating surprise that would shake the stability David had built. It was a rainy Thursday when he received a phone call that would change everything. David, it's Fernanda. His ex-wife's voice sounded different, less confident than in their married days. I need to talk to you. It's about Lily. David felt the blood run cold in his veins. He was in the design room at TechMac, surrounded by technical schematics and prototypes, when his personal life brutally invaded his professional sanctuary. Fernanda, where are you calling from? I haven't heard from you in over a year. I'm in Los Angeles. I arrived yesterday from Riverside. She hesitated. Can I meet you after work? It's important. David closed his eyes, trying to process the information. Fernanda had left their lives 2 years earlier when he lost his previous job. At the time, she claimed she couldn't support a family alone and moved to the countryside with an agribusiness entrepreneur who promised a more stable life. All right, but it has to be after 7, and Lily will know everything we talk about. Actually, David, that's exactly what I need to talk about. They met at a diner in Brooklyn near David's apartment. Fernanda had changed in the last 2 years. Jessica's brown hair was shorter, with blonde highlights that clashed with her skin tone. She wore clothes that tried to look sophisticated, but were visibly cheap. There was a fragility in her eyes that David didn't remember seeing during their marriage. Are you okay? He asked, genuinely concerned despite all the hurt. No, actually I'm not. Jessica nervously stirred her coffee, avoiding his gaze. My relationship with Mark ended. He wasn't the person I thought he was. David waited in silence. He had learned not to fill the empty spaces in difficult conversations. He treated me well at first, you know, but then he started drinking, becoming aggressive. He never hit me, but... She paused. Words sometimes hurt more than fists. I'm sorry, Jessica, I really am. And he truly felt it. Despite all the pain she had caused, David couldn't take pleasure in her suffering. I'm homeless, David. Unemployed. I spent the last 2 years depending on him financially, and now... Her hands trembled as she picked up the cup. I want my daughter back. And the words hit David like a punch to the stomach. What do you mean, back? Lily has been living with me for 2 years. You abandoned her, remember? I didn't abandon her. I needed to find myself, but now I'm ready to be a mother again. Jessica, you can't just show up and decide you want to be a mother when it's convenient for you. I have rights, David. Her voice rose an octave, attracting curious glances from other tables. I'm her mother. And now that you have a good job, you can pay a decent child support. There was the raw truth. Jessica had found out about his new job, probably through mutual acquaintances, and saw a financial opportunity. Do you want child support, or do you want custody of Lily? David asked coldly. I want both. She's my daughter as much as yours. David stood up from the table, grabbing his wallet. I'm going to talk to my lawyer. If you want to do this officially, then let's do it officially. David, wait. Jessica grabbed his arm. "It doesn't have to be a war. We can resolve this civilly." "Civilly would have been you calling before just showing up demanding rights you abdicated." David pulled away from her grip. "Lily is not a child support check, Jessica. She's a child who has already suffered enough from your absence." The next morning, David arrived at the office visibly shaken. He had spent the night awake, researching shared custody laws online and trying to understand his rights. Lily had noticed something was wrong, but he still didn't know how to explain the situation to an 8-year-old girl. Marina immediately sensed that something was different. During the weekly progress meeting, she noticed how David seemed distracted, answering technical questions automatically, without his usual enthusiasm. "David, could you stay a bit after the meeting?" she asked when the other team members stood up to leave. "I want to discuss some details of the schedule." Once they were alone in the meeting room, Marina was direct. "What happened? You're not okay." David hesitated. Maintaining professional distance meant not sharing personal problems, but the genuine concern in Marina's green eyes broke through his defenses. "My ex-wife came back. She wants custody of Lily." Marina's expression instantly changed, from professional to personally involved. "Oh, David, and when did this happen?" "Last night. She showed up out of nowhere, said her relationship in the country ended and that she wants to start over with Lily." David rubbed his face with his hands. "But I know it's about money. She found out I got a good job." Marina stepped closer, her maternal instincts overcoming any business protocol. "Do you have a lawyer?" "I have the name of one a colleague recommended. I'll call today." "David, I know someone, Dr. Robert Mills. He specializes in family law and has an office on Sunset Boulevard. He helped a friend of mine in a similar situation." "Marina, I can't accept—" David began to protest, but she interrupted him. "It's not a personal favor. It's a professional recommendation. You need help, and I know someone competent. That's all." That afternoon, David called Dr. Robert Mills and secured an appointment for the next day. The lawyer was a man in his 50s, balding, with gold-framed glasses and a straightforward manner of speaking that immediately reassured David. "Mr. Smith, I'll be frank with you. Custody change cases are always complicated, especially when the biological mother claims financial abandonment," Dr. Robert explained, flipping through the documents David had brought. "But you have strong points. 2 years of de facto custody, emotional and financial stability, and most importantly, the demonstrable well-being of the child. What does that mean in practical terms? It means we need to document everything. Lily's routine, her school performance, her emotional health, her social relationships. We need to prove that she is better off living with you." David nodded, mentally taking notes. "And if she gets shared custody?" "It's a possibility. Courts tend to favor contact with both parents even when one has been absent, but there are ways to protect Lily from instability." The conversation lasted over an hour, and when David left the lawyer's office, he had a clear strategy, but also a considerably smaller bank account. The legal fees would be a significant challenge for his budget. That night, David finally had the difficult conversation with Lily. She listened in silence, sitting on her bed with the goldfish from the county fair swimming in the aquarium beside her. "Mommy wants me to live with her?" Lily asked in a small voice. "She wants to spend more time with you. But Princess, nothing will change without you knowing, okay? You will always have a say in what happens in your life." "I don't want to live far away from Daddy," Lily said, her eyes filling with tears. "And if she—" David pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling his heart break. "No one is going to take you away from me, Princess. I promise." But even as he made that promise, David knew it wasn't entirely in his hands to keep it. The following week, the situation became even more complicated. Jessica started showing up at Lily's school, claiming her rights as a mother to see her. The principal, confused about the legal situation, allowed the visits, causing emotional turmoil for the little girl. "Dad, why did Mom only show up now?" Lily asked one evening, distractedly playing with her food. "Why didn't she visit me when I was sad?" It was a question David didn't know how to answer without speaking ill of Jessica, something Dr. Robert had advised him to avoid during the legal process. "Sometimes adults make choices we don't understand, Princess. The important thing is that now you have many people who love you." "Like Aunt Marina?" David stopped eating. Lily had mentioned Marina several times in the past few weeks, always asking when she would come to visit them again. "Yes, like Marina, and Aunt Paula, and Grandpa Klaus, and all your friends from school." "Is Mr. Klaus my grandpa?" Lily laughed for the first time in days. "It's a figure of speech, Princess, but he cares a lot about you." In fact, the entire team at Tecmac had informally adopted Lily. During the rare occasions when David needed to take her to the office, like the day the school closed due to power issues, she was welcomed like a little mascot. Klaus taught her words in German. Paula showed her colorful technical drawings, and even Charles, despite his reservations about David, always had candies in his pocket for the girl. But it was Marina that Lily looked for with her eyes every time she visited the office. And it was Marina who always found an excuse to appear in the project room when Lily was there. "How's our little engineer?" Marina asked one Friday afternoon, finding Lily drawing at David's desk while he finished some calculations. "Aunt Marina!" Lily jumped from her chair and ran to hug her. "Look what I drew. It's a machine that makes chocolate truffles automatically." Marina examined the drawing with professional seriousness. "Very creative, and I see you thought about the heating system here. Very smart." David watched the interaction with a tight heart. Lily had found in Marina a motherly figure she didn't even know was missing from her life. And now, with Jessica back, all of that could disappear. As if she could read his thoughts, Marina looked at David over Lily's head, her eyes conveying a silent question. "How can I help?" David just shook his head slightly, a response that said, "I don't know if you can." But Marina had made a decision. That night, after Lily went to bed, she called David. "I know you said you don't want favors," she started without preamble, "but I've already scheduled a meeting with Dr. Robert. He will work on your case pro bono." "Marina, I can't accept that. It's not charity, David. It's an investment." Her voice was firm, but there was a vulnerability behind it. "Lily, she has become important to me too. And you both have become important to me." David was silent for a long moment, processing not only the generosity of the gesture, but the implicit confession that came with it. "Thank you," he finally said, "not just for the help, but for caring." "Always," Marina replied softly. "I will always care." After she hung up, David stared out the office window, watching the lights of Los Angeles shine in the darkness. His life had become infinitely more complicated since Jessica returned. But for the first time in 2 years, he didn't feel alone facing a crisis. And that, he knew, changed everything. The first week of July brought a subtle but significant shift in the dynamic between David and Marina. Since she offered help with the lawyer, the professional barriers they had both carefully built began to crumble, replaced by a complicity that went far beyond superior and subordinate. Dr. Robert Mills called David one Tuesday morning with news about the case. "Mr. Smith, I got some information about your ex-wife. She's living in a cheap hotel downtown and hasn't had any verifiable income for over 6 months. This strengthens our position considerably." "Does that mean she has no chance of getting custody?" "Not necessarily. The court always considers the rights of the biological mother, but her financial and residential instability are points in our favor. There's something else. She hired a new lawyer yesterday, Mark from the Santos and Vieira firm. He's expensive and aggressive." David felt a chill in his stomach. How could she afford an expensive lawyer if she has no income? "Good question. I'll investigate. Someone might be financing her legal action." When he hung up, David sat in thought for several minutes. Where had Jessica gotten money to hire a well-known lawyer? And why do that, if her motivation was purely financial? That afternoon, Marina appeared in the project room with an excuse about checking the latest progress reports. But David noticed she was genuinely concerned about him. "How did the conversation with the lawyer go?" she asked when they were alone. David shared about Dr. Roberts' call, including the information about Jessica's new lawyer. Marina frowned. "Mark? I know that name. He represented a client against our company 2 years ago in a labor dispute. He's competent but has questionable methods." "What do you mean?" "He uses intimidation tactics, looking for ways to emotionally destabilize the opposing party. If Jessica hired him, it's because someone advised her that an aggressive approach would work better." David sat heavily in his chair, rubbing his face with his hands. "I'm starting to think this is going to be It's worse than I imagined." Marina hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a chair and sat next to him, closer than any professional interaction would justify. "David, I need to tell you something. This morning I received a strange call. Someone from Vieira's office asking about you, your performance here, if there's any inappropriate behavior, that sort of thing. They're investigating my professional life." "It seems so. I didn't give any information, obviously, but the tone of the questions worried me. They were especially interested in, well, our working relationship." David felt a weight in his stomach. "Do they know about us?" "There's no us for them to know," Marina said quickly, but her eyes avoided his. "We're colleagues who respect each other." "Marina," David turned his chair to face her, "you know it's not just that. At least not for me." She finally looked into his eyes, and David saw vulnerability mixed with determination. "Not for me either," she admitted softly. "But David, if they're looking for ways to attack you, anything beyond a professional relationship between us could be used against you. So what do?" "We do what's right," Marina said, but her voice sounded less convincing than her words. "We keep our distance, for Sophia's sake." That night, David had a difficult conversation with Sophia about what was happening. She listened with the seriousness of a child who had already experienced too many changes for her age. "Daddy, can Mommy make me live with her?" "She can't force you, Princess, but the judge might decide it's best for you to spend some time with her too." "I don't want to," Sophia said with a firmness that surprised David. "She left when I needed her. Why do I have to go back now that she needs me?" The maturity of Sophia's observation was both impressive and heartbreaking. David pulled her into a hug. "Sometimes adults make mistakes, Princess. Big mistakes. But that doesn't mean they can't try to fix them. But what if she leaves again?" It was the question David didn't know how to answer because he had the same fear. On Friday of that week, David received an offer that would change everything. During his lunch break, he was approached by John Anderson, the engineering director of Suntech, a competing company specializing in solar energy. "David, I'll get straight to the point," John said as they had coffee at a nearby bakery. "We know about the excellent work you're doing at TechMac. We want to hire you as the general project supervisor. Salary 40% higher than your current one, profit sharing, and complete autonomy to build your own team." David almost choked on his coffee. "John, this is very unexpected." "I know it is, but you're wasting time at a multinational that treats you like a subordinate. Here you would be the guy, the expert everyone is looking for. Think about it. With that salary, any legal issues you're facing become much simpler." The offer was tempting in a way that scared David. With 40% more salary, he could hire the best lawyer in Los Angeles, ensure that Sophia had everything she needed, create a financial stability that Fernanda could never question. But it would also mean leaving TechMac, leaving the project that had become his passion, and leaving Marina. "Can I think about it over the weekend?" "Of course." "But David, opportunities like this don't come around often. And from what I've heard, you might need every possible advantage in the personal situation you're facing." The phrase made David freeze. How did you know about my personal situation? John shrugged. Los Angeles is a small city when it comes to our field. People talk. But David suspected there was more behind the timing of the offer and John's knowledge of his personal issues. That night, he called Dr. Robert with his suspicions. Doctor, is it possible that the other party is trying to destabilize me professionally, maybe pressuring me to make hasty decisions? It's a common tactic in contentious cases. If you leave your current job, especially for a competitor, they can use that to question your stability and motivations. Why would a responsible father risk his professional security during a custody battle? But the salary would be much higher. David, let me be clear. Any significant professional change during this process will be scrutinized by the court. If the decision seems impulsive or motivated by pressure, it could harm your case. On Saturday morning, David woke up to Sophia jumping on his bed. "Daddy, Aunt Marina is at the door!" David looked at the clock. It was 8 in the morning. He quickly put on a t-shirt and went to answer the door, finding Marina with 2 grocery bags and a shy smile. "Sorry to show up like this," she said, "but I promised Sophia I would teach her how to make chocolate truffles. Remember, I brought the ingredients." David didn't recall any specific promise, but Sophia clearly remembered and was beaming with happiness. "Come in. Coffee?" "Please." As Sophia organized the ingredients on the kitchen table, Marina and David spoke quietly in the living room. "Actually," Marina admitted, "I came because I need to tell you something. Yesterday afternoon I had an interesting visit. John Anderson from Suntech." David felt his blood run cold. "He came to see you?" "He said he knew you had talked and wanted to extend a professional courtesy. Basically, he wanted to inform me that you would probably be leaving Techmark soon." Marina looked at him intently. "David, they're trying to isolate you, to make you make a hasty decision that could harm your case. Do you think the offer is real?" "It probably is. But the timing is no coincidence." Marina took a deep breath. "And there's one more thing. I found out who is paying Fernanda's lawyer." David waited, his heart racing. "Mark Wilson has ties to an asset recovery company. They finance legal cases in exchange for a percentage of the settlements. Jessica signed a contract that required her to secure at least $15,000 a month in child support, or they would take any amount she earned over the next 2 years. $15,000, David repeated, stunned. "That's more than half my salary." "Exactly. They aren't interested in custody of Lily. They want to turn you into a source of income." In the kitchen, Lily shouted, "Come here. Let's start making chocolate truffles." David and Marina exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing. That innocent girl, making chocolate truffles in the kitchen, had no idea she had become the center of a battle that went far beyond a simple custody dispute. "What do I do, Marina?" She lightly touched his arm, the first physical contact in weeks. "You stay and fight. Don't let them intimidate you or force you into decisions out of fear. And if I lose the case, what if they prove I'm an unfit father?" "That's not going to happen," Marina said, with a conviction that warmed his heart, "because you're not fighting alone." At that moment, watching Marina help Lily measure sugar and cocoa powder, David realized something fundamental. Regardless of what happened with the legal case, regardless of the professional complications, he had found something he wasn't looking for: a partner, someone willing to stand by him when life got tough. And for the first time since Jessica had reappeared, David felt that maybe, just maybe, everything would turn out all right. The July Sunday unfolded in a way David had never imagined possible. After spending the morning making chocolate truffles, with Lily taking on the role of head chef and giving instructions to both David and Marina, the afternoon naturally evolved into something resembling a family. Marina had brought ingredients for a complete chili, claiming she wanted to learn how to make the Los Angeles version. David suspected it was an excuse to spend more time with them, but he didn't mind. It had been weeks since Lily had smiled so much. "Aunt Marina, why don't you have kids?" Lily asked with the typical frankness of children while they peeled oranges for dessert. They were sitting on the small balcony of the apartment, enjoying the weak winter sun. David almost dropped the knife he was using to cut the cheese. "Lily, that question is very personal." "No, it's fine," Marina said, but David noticed how her fingers tightened slightly around the orange. "It's a valid question." She paused for a moment, choosing her words. "I wanted to have kids for a long time. I tried with my ex-husband, but it didn't happen. And then, when I found out who he really was, I realized it might be better this way." "But you'd be a super cool mom," Lily insisted. "You know how to make chocolate truffles, you understand machines, and you have the patience to explain things." Marina smiled, but David saw tears forming in the corners of her eyes. "Thank you, Lily. That means a lot to me. You could be like my stepmom, just like Paula is my step-aunt." David gently intervened. "Princess, Marina has her own life, her own responsibilities." "Actually," Marina said, surprising them both, "I would love to be your stepmom, Lily, if your dad agrees, of course." The look Marina directed at David was loaded with meanings that went far beyond a child's innocent play. It was a question, an offer, a confession, all at once. "Sure," David managed to say, his voice slightly hoarse. "It would be an honor." The afternoon passed quickly between conversations, laughter, and small moments of domestic intimacy. Marina insisted on washing the dishes, David dried the plates, and Lily organized everything in the cabinets, a simple yet deeply meaningful choreography. It was when they were in the kitchen, packing up the leftovers from the chili, that it happened. Lily was in the living room watching cartoons, and David was helping Marina pack the food into containers. The radio played softly a song by a popular American singer, and the rain that had started to fall created a cozy background sound. "David," Marina said softly, "thank you for today. It had been a long time since I felt part of something familial." They were too close for the simple task of storing food. David could smell her soft perfume mixed with the lingering aroma of spices in the air. "Thank you," he replied. "Lily needed it. We needed something like this." Marina turned to face him, and David saw that she had made a decision. "David, I know the situation is complicated. I know there are professional risks, legal issues, all of that, but I can't pretend I don't feel anything." "Marina, let me finish," she asked, placing a hand on his chest. "I have fallen in love with you, and with Lily, with the family you are, with the way you protect her, how she trusts you, with the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." David covered her hand with his. "I have fallen in love too, with you, with the strong woman you are, with how you care for us, despite all the risks." They slowly leaned in, as if they were two magnets being drawn together by an inevitable force. When their lips finally met, it was with the tenderness of something long awaited and the passion of long suppressed feelings. The kiss was soft at first, exploratory, as if they were both testing the reality of the moment. Then it deepened, laden with weeks of tension and contained desire. David's hands moved to Marina's waist, pulling her closer while she wove her fingers into his hair. "Dad, Aunt Marina?" Lily's voice from the living room made them quickly separate, both blushing like teenagers. "We're here, Princess," David called, trying to normalize his voice. "Can I have another chocolate truffle?" "Sure," Marina replied, still slightly breathless. To David, she whispered, "I don't think she saw." They finished organizing the kitchen in silence, but it was a silence charged with new intimacy. Small accidental touches, glances that lasted a bit longer than necessary, smiles that spoke more than words. When it was time for Marina to leave, it was already past 9 in the evening, Lily insisted on giving her a long hug. "Are you coming back next week?" the girl asked hopefully. "If your dad invites me," Marina replied, looking at David. "You're always invited," he said, and the words carried much more weight than a simple social invitation. At the apartment door, while Lily brushed her teeth, David and Marina had a moment alone. "And now?" Marina asked softly. Now we try to figure out how to make this work, David replied, kissing her gently on the forehead. One day at a time. David, about work. Let's be discreet. Professionals during office hours. But Marina, he held her face in his hands. I'm not going to pretend this doesn't exist. I can't. She nodded, covering one of his hands with hers. Neither can I. After Marina left, David helped Lily get ready for bed. While brushing his daughter's hair, she casually commented, Dad, you really like Aunt Marina, don't you? David paused the brushing. Why do you ask? Because you two look at each other like in the movies, and you turned red in the kitchen when I called. Lily turned to face him. Can I know if you're dating? I won't tell anyone. David took a deep breath, deciding to be honest. Lily, I really like Marina, and I think she likes me too. But our situation is complicated because of work and because of your mom. I like Aunt Marina, Lily said simply. She's nice to me, she's nice to you, and she makes you smile for real. Mum never made you smile for real. The observation hit David like a lightning bolt. His 8-year-old daughter had noticed something he himself had taken years to understand, that he had never been truly happy with Jessica. Princess, this will stay between us for now, okay? Until we sort things out with your mum. Okay, Dad, but I hope you two end up together. I think we'd be a nice family. That night, after Lily fell asleep, David stood on the balcony looking at the city lights and thinking about how much his life had changed in just a few hours. For the first time since Jessica returned, he felt genuine hope. His phone buzzed with a message from Marina. Thank you for the most perfect day I've had in a long time. Sleep well. David smiled, typing back, Thank you. Lily is already planning our next cooking class. Dream of chocolate truffles. The reply came quickly. I'll dream of much more than chocolate truffles. See you tomorrow at work. Let's try to be professionals. David chuckled softly, putting his phone away. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Jessica, the legal case, the pressures of work. But today had been perfect, and for the first time in 2 years, David went to sleep with a smile on his face. August arrived with a chill that went beyond the Los Angeles weather. David was in the design room on a Monday morning, reviewing the latest tests of the solar storage prototype, when he received a call that would change everything. Mr. Smith. The voice on the other end was formal, polite, but there was something sinister in the tone. I'm Mark Wilson, attorney for Ms. Jessica Harris. I need to schedule an urgent conversation with you. David felt a knot in his stomach. About what? About some information that has come to our attention that may be relevant to the custody case. I prefer not to discuss it over the phone. They arranged to meet in the late afternoon at Wilson's office, a mirrored building in Midtown Manhattan. David arrived accompanied by Dr. Robert Mills, who insisted on being present. Mark Wilson's office was intimidating by design. Dark, solid wood furniture, diplomas and certificates covering an entire wall, and a huge desk that made visitors feel small. Wilson was a man in his 40s, thin, with perfectly styled grey hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. Gentlemen, I'll get straight to the point, Wilson began, opening a folder in front of him. My client has informed me of certain irregularities in Mr. Smith's professional conduct. What kind of irregularities? Dr. Robert asked coldly. Wilson pulled out several photographs from the folder. David felt the blood drain from his face when he saw them. They were pictures of him and Marina in the elevator at Techmach, taken with a cell phone through the glass doors. One showed them talking too closely to be purely professional. Another captured the moment their hands briefly touched. The third, and most compromising, had been taken the previous Friday, Marina touching David's arm during a conversation in the design room. We also have reports that you have maintained an inappropriate relationship with your superior executive director, Marina Johnson, Wilson continued, his voice gaining a tone of cruel satisfaction. A relationship that allegedly influenced your rapid promotion at the company. David tried to maintain his composure. These photos prove nothing beyond normal professional interactions. Perhaps, but we have something more interesting. Wilson played an audio recording on his cell phone. It was their conversation in the elevator 2 weeks earlier, when David asked how Lily was doing, and Marina responded affectionately. The quality was poor, but the voices were clearly identifiable, and the intimate tone was undeniable. "How did you get this?" Dr. Robert asked, visibly furious. "Information legally obtained by someone concerned for the well-being of young Lily," Wilson replied with a fake smile. "The question is, how does a responsible father justify exposing his daughter to unstable relationships based on professional favoritism?" David felt a growing anger in his chest. "Marina has nothing to do with this." "Oh, but she does, Mr. Smith. You see, our investigation revealed that Ms. Johnson has a history of problematic relationships. A marriage ended due to her ex-husband's infidelity, instability, emotional documentation. She fainted publicly a few months ago, didn't she? Erratic behavior." "Enough!" David stood up from his chair. "You will not defame Marina because of your dirty games." "Mr. Smith," Dr. Robert pulled him back into the chair. "Let me handle this." Mark remained impassive. "The question is simple. We have enough evidence to question both your emotional stability and your ability to make decisions in Lily's best interest. A man who becomes romantically involved with his boss, potentially putting his job at risk." "What do you want?" Dr. Robert interrupted. 50-50 joint custody and a monthly alimony of $12,000. In exchange, this material doesn't reach the court or Techmax management. David felt as if he had been hit by a truck. $12,000 was almost half of his salary, and joint custody would mean that Lily would spend half her time with Jessica. "I need to talk to my client," Dr. Robert said. "Of course, but don't take too long. Sometimes this information leaks to inconvenient places." Outside the office, David was visibly shaken. "Robert, they can destroy Marina because of me." "David, calm down. Let's analyze this coldly. First, these photos are circumstantial. Second, the audio was obtained illegally. Third, they are trying to intimidate you. But if this reaches Techmac, Marina could lose her job, I know. The company has a strict policy against relationships between direct supervisors." Dr. Robert sighed. "David, I need to ask, is the relationship real?" David hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, it started recently, but yes." "That complicates things. If they prove favoritism—" "There was no favoritism. My promotion was based on competence." "I know, but appearances are what matter in court." That night, David came home devastated. Lily immediately noticed that something was wrong. "Daddy, are you sad?" "Just tired, Princess. It was a tough day at work." But when Lily went to bed, David called Marina. She answered on the first ring. "David, how was the meeting with Jessica's lawyer?" "Marina, we need to talk. In person." Something in his tone alarmed her. "What happened?" "I can't talk over the phone. Can you come here?" Marina arrived 40 minutes later, still wearing the grey suit she had on at the office, but with a worried expression. David took her to the kitchen, closing the door to avoid waking Lily. "They know about us," he said bluntly, showing her the photos that Dr. Robert had managed to get copies of. Marina examined the images, her face progressively paling. "How did they get this?" "Someone photographed us at the office and recorded our conversation in the elevator." David recounted the entire meeting, including the threats and demands. Marina sat heavily in a chair. "David, if this reaches the board, you could lose your job, I know." David knelt before her. "Marina, maybe it's better." "No," she interrupted him firmly. "Don't say it's better to end things. But your job, your career—" "My career means nothing if I lose you and Lily in the process." Marina held his face in her hands. "David, we won't let them win like this. But the blackmail, that's what it is, blackmail. And there are ways to deal with blackmailers. The next day, Marina requested an urgent meeting with Klaus Meyer. She entered his office with a folder of documents and a determined expression. "Klaus, I need to inform you about a situation that could affect the company," she began. "I'm being blackmailed because of a personal relationship with David Smith." Klaus nearly knocked over his coffee cup. "My God, Marina, relationship, but you are. Supervisor and subordinate, I know. But Klaus, you need to know how it started." Marina told the whole story. The first meeting on the street, the unexpected reunion, how feelings developed despite attempts to maintain professional distance. "Marina, you know our policy." "I know, and I also know that I promoted David purely based on his qualifications. Look at these progress reports." She spread documents across the table. "His team is 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The innovation in the cooling system will yield at least 2 patents. If this is favoritism, then we should favor more employees like this." Klaus examined the documents, frowning. "These results are impressive." "Klaus, I'm willing to accept the consequences of the company's policy, but I won't allow blackmailers to destroy an exemplary employee or jeopardize a crucial project." De Klaus remained silent for several minutes, flipping through the reports. "Marina, there's something you need to know. I received a strange call yesterday. Someone asking about irregularities in employee conduct. I didn't provide any information, but now I understand what was happening. They are already trying to pressure the company." "Yes, but Marina," Klaus smiled slightly, "the German headquarters values results above all else, and these results are exceptional." That afternoon, Marina called David. "I need to tell you something. I spoke with Klaus." David felt his heart stop. "And? He wants to see you tomorrow at 9 in the morning. And David?" "Yes? Bring your most recent progress reports. All of them." David hung up, not knowing whether to feel hopeful or terrified. In 24 hours, he would know if he still had a job, and if Marina would be able to keep hers. Wednesday morning dawned grey and rainy, perfectly matching David's mood. He arrived at the office at 8:30, carrying a folder with all his progress reports, documented prototypes, and technical analyses from the last 4 months. Klaus Meyer welcomed him into his office on the 17th floor, accompanied by Marina and, to David's surprise, by Ms. Ingrid Weber, the Human Resources Director from the German headquarters, who had arrived from Frankfurt the night before. "David," Klaus began, gesturing for him to sit. "Ms. Weber would like to personally review your work here at Techmark." Ingrid was an imposing woman in her 50s, with grey hair pulled back into a tight bun, gold-framed glasses, and an expression that revealed nothing. She spoke fluent English, but with a noticeable accent, a heavy German accent. "Mr. Smith," she said, opening a laptop, "we have received some allegations regarding your professional conduct. Before we proceed with any action, I would like to evaluate your performance objectively." David took a deep breath. "Of course, I brought all the requested documents." Over the next hour, David detailed every aspect of the solar storage project. He showed efficiency spreadsheets, cost-saving graphs, functional prototypes, and market projections. His passion for the work was evident in every word, every technical explanation. Ingrid asked precise questions, deeply testing his knowledge. "This cooling system, how did you arrive at this solution?" "I analyzed the failures of European systems in tropical climates. The humidity in Brazil is 40% higher than the German average, causing condensation in the circuits. I developed a specific metal alloy that dissipates heat more efficiently under these conditions. And the results? A 35% increase in efficiency, a 60% reduction in maintenance costs." David showed comparative graphs. "We already have 3 companies interested in implementation contracts." Marina watched everything in silence, but David could see the pride in her eyes. "Interesting," Ingrid murmured, taking notes. "Klaus, why wasn't this employee leading projects before?" He was hired only 4 months ago, Klaus explained. Marina identified his potential and promoted him quickly. Ingrid turned to Marina. Director Johnson, explain the criteria for this promotion. Marina opened her own folder. Proven experience in solar energy, demonstrated technical innovation, natural leadership recognized by the team. She handed documents to Ingrid. Here are the evaluations of all the candidates considered for the position. David scored the highest in all relevant technical categories. And the personal categories? David felt the tension in the air. It was the moment of truth. Marina kept her voice steady. Mr. Smith has demonstrated exceptional integrity, dedication to the project, and the ability to work under pressure. His team respects him deeply. Ingrid closed the laptop and remained silent for several minutes, analyzing documents. Finally, she addressed David. Mr. Smith, your technical contributions are remarkable. However, we have been made aware of certain irregularities in your relationship with the management. David swallowed hard. Can I explain? You may. But first, I would like Director Johnson to leave the room. Marina hesitated, but Klaus gestured for her to exit. Once it was just David, Klaus, and Ingrid. The atmosphere became even tenser. Now, Ingrid said, tell me about your relationship with Marina Johnson. David decided on complete honesty. He recounted their first meeting on the street, Marina's fainting, how they met before she became his boss. He explained how they tried to maintain professional distance, but feelings developed naturally. I understand, Ingrid said when he finished. And do you believe this relationship influenced your promotion? No, David replied firmly. My promotion was based on technical competence. The results speak for themselves. Klaus interjected. Ingrid, the numbers are undeniable. The project is ahead of schedule, under budget, and with innovations that can be applied globally. Ingrid nodded slowly. Klaus, I need 15 minutes to make some calls to Frankfurt. While they waited in the hallway, David and Marina met for the first time in 2 days. The tension between them was palpable. How is Lily? Marina asked softly. Worried. She knows something is going on. David looked around to ensure they were alone. Marina, if you lose your job because of me. David, stop. I've already decided. If I leave TechMac, I will open my own consulting firm. And I will need a partner who specializes in solar energy. Before David could respond, Klaus appeared. Ingrid wants to see you again. Back in the room, Ingrid had a slightly less severe expression. I just spoke with the executive board in Frankfurt. They are impressed with the results of the solar project. David and Marina exchanged hopeful glances. However, Ingrid continued, our policy on relationships between direct supervisors is clear. There are 2 options. End the personal relationship, or one of you must change positions. David's heart sank. It was exactly what they feared. However, Ingrid added, and there was an almost smile on her lips, the board approved a proposal I received this morning. TechMac will create a new autonomous division for renewable energies, headquartered here in Los Angeles. Marina leaned forward. A new division? Yes, focused exclusively on the Latin American market. We will need a technical director and an executive director with full operational autonomy. Ingrid looked directly at David. Mr. Smith, would you like to be our technical director? David almost choked. Technical director? With your own team, independent budget and responsibility for all renewable energy projects in Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. Klaus smiled. It's a significant promotion, David. And Marina? David asked. Director Johnson will remain as the executive director of the main division, Ingrid explained. You will be colleagues at the same hierarchical level, in separate but collaborative divisions. This resolves any conflict of interest. Marina smiled for the first time in days. It's an elegant solution. There is one condition, Ingrid added. The current project must be successfully completed. We have an important client interested. Petrobras wants to implement solar systems in all its refineries. If we secure this contract, the new division starts with a budget of $50 million. David felt adrenaline coursing through his veins. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. "I accept," he said without hesitation. "Great. The transition will happen in 3 months. Until then, maintain absolute discretion regarding the personal relationship." Ingrid closed her documents. "And Mr. Smith?" "Yes? About those allegations we received. My advice is to document everything. Blackmailers rarely stop after their first success." After Ingrid and Klaus left, David and Marina were alone in the meeting room. "We did it," Marina said, almost in disbelief. "Marina, did you plan this?" She smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say, when you have access to global financial reports, you discover that the headquarters has been looking for ways to expand in Latin America for months. They just needed the right project and the right team." David picked her up in his arms, spinning her around. For the first time in weeks, he felt hope. David felt genuine hope, but that afternoon brought a reminder that the battle was not over. Dr. Robert called with news about Jessica. "David, she rejected our counteroffer and is pushing to go to court. Mark Wilson is confident that the evidence of her relationship with Marina will hurt her case." "Robert, I have news about that too." David shared about the morning meeting and the solution found by TechMac. "This changes everything," Dr. Robert said, clearly excited. "If you have a promotion based purely on merit, documented by the German headquarters, it destroys the favoritism claim. And if Marina is no longer your direct supervisor, the relationship becomes irrelevant from a legal standpoint." "Exactly. David, I think we just turned the tide in our favor." That night, David had dinner with Lily at home, telling her, in a way appropriate for an 8-year-old, about his promotion. "Are you going to be a director?" Lily asked, impressed. "I am. It means more responsibility, but it also means our life will become more stable. And Aunt Marina, will she still be your friend?" David smiled, thinking about how to explain adult relationships to a child. "Yes, Princess. She will continue to be our friend. A very special friend." "That's good," Lily said, returning her attention to the drawing she was making. "I like it when you're really happy." Later, after Lily fell asleep, David received a message from Marina. "We're quite the team, Director Smith." He quickly replied, "The best team in every sense." For the first time since Jessica reappeared in their lives, David slept soundly, dreaming of a future that finally seemed possible. October arrived with the promise of spring and a renewed energy that permeated both David's personal and professional life. The new renewable energy division of TechMac was taking shape rapidly, set up on an entire floor of the building in Midtown Manhattan, with state-of-the-art equipment and a team of 15 specialized engineers. David was in his new office, a spacious area with a panoramic view of the city, when he received the call that would definitively change the course of his legal battle. "David," Dr. Roberts sounded euphoric, "we have a significant breakthrough. Marina's assistant has accomplished something extraordinary." "Mrs. Johnson, what did she do?" "She documented all the suspicious activities of the former HR director, Charles Mendoza. Embezzlement, data manipulation, and most importantly, she has recordings of him conspiring with Mark Wilson's office." David sat heavily in his chair. "Recordings?" "He was receiving commissions for the information he provided about you and Marina." "It's extortion, David. Both Mendoza and Wilson can be prosecuted." Mrs. Johnson, 62, had worked at TechMac for over 20 years. She was a discreet woman, always wearing sober clothing and carrying a crocheted purse made by her mother. "You knew that she had raised 5 children alone after becoming a widow at 30, or that she had a technical degree in accounting and a photographic memory for numbers. When Marina saved her job during the company restructuring, Mrs. Johnson developed a fierce loyalty to the new director, and when she realized that Charles Mendoza was plotting against Marina, she decided to take action. "Mrs. Marina has always been polite to me," she explained to David when they met to talk. She never treated me like furniture, always asked about my grandchildren. When that man started asking strange questions about you two, I knew I had to do something. She had used an old recorder, the same one she used to take dictation when Marina was in meetings, to document phone conversations that Mendoza made from his office, thinking he was alone. The operation is going well, Mrs. Johnson mimicked Mendoza's voice during one of the recordings. We have compromising photos. The lawyer is confident he will get a good sum from the engineer. The recordings revealed a scheme even more sinister than David had imagined. Mendoza was not just providing information, he was actively sabotaging David's defense, passing strategic details to Wilson and even suggesting ways to pressure Tecmac to fire both David and Marina. It's a professional extortion scheme, Dr. Robert explained when they presented the evidence to the prosecutor. They turned the legal system into a money-making machine. The impact was immediate. The following Tuesday, Charles Mendoza was caught red-handed trying to destroy documents in his office. Mark Wilson was investigated by the district attorney's office, and the contract between Jessica and the Asset Recovery Company was declared fraudulent. But the most surprising news came on Thursday when Dr. Robert called with an unexpected update. David, Jessica wants to talk to you, in person. No lawyers. They met at the same cafe in Brooklyn, where they had talked months before, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Jessica seemed smaller, more fragile, without the defensive aggression she had shown before. David, she began, nervously fiddling with her coffee cup. I didn't know about Wilson's scheme. I swear I didn't know they were extorting you. David studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, but saw only genuine exhaustion and something that looked like regret. Jessica, what really happened? Why did you come back? She took a deep breath, as if preparing to reveal a long-held truth. Mark, my ex-boyfriend. He wasn't just emotionally abusive. He owed me a lot of money. Loans he took out in my name, credit cards he opened using my documents. When I broke up with him, I was left with nothing and in debt. And you thought I would be the solution? I thought you owed me that, she admitted, but without the previous anger. I thought you had built a good life and that I deserved a part of it. But David, she looked him directly in the eye. When Wilson started talking about destroying Marina, about using Lily as a weapon, I realized I had completely lost my way. David felt a mix of anger and pity. Lily is our daughter, Jessica, not a negotiation tool. I know, and that's why I'm here. Jessica pulled some papers from her bag. I signed the withdrawal of the custody action. Lily stays with you. Full time. David took the documents, barely believing what he was reading. Jessica, why? Because in the last few weeks, every time I visited her at school, she talked about you, about how you cooked together on weekends, about the science projects, about Aunt Marina teaching her how to make chocolate truffles. Jessica smiled sadly. She has a family, David. A real family. I can't destroy that because of my mistakes. And what will you do now? I'm going back to the countryside. I got a job at a school in Springfield. Math teacher. Remember I had training? I'm going to try to rebuild my life the right way this time. They talked for another hour, sorting out practical details about visitation. Jessica could see Lily twice a year during school breaks, if Lily wanted. It was a simple agreement, based on the child's well-being, not on legal obligations. David, Jessica said as they said goodbye, I'm sorry for everything. You've always been a better father than I was a mother. Jessica, it's not too late to be a better mother, just in a different way. That night, David told Lily about the conversation with Jessica. The girl listened in silence, processing the information with the seriousness she had developed to deal with adult issues. So I can keep living here, she finally asked. Forever, Princess. And Aunt Marina, is she going to keep coming to make chocolate truffles? David smiled. Actually, I have news about Marina. The following weekend, David organized a special barbecue in the small backyard of the building where they lived. He invited Paula, Klaus, Mrs. Johnson, and a few other colleagues from Tecmac. But the most important guest was Marina, who arrived carrying a tray of chocolate truffles and a radiant smile. "Everyone," David said when they were all gathered around the grill, "Marina and I have an announcement to make." Lily jumped for joy even before the official announcement. "Are you going to date for real now?" "More than that, Princess," David said, pulling Marina close. "I proposed to Marina, and she said yes." The backyard erupted in applause and shouts of joy. Klaus raised his beer in a toast in German that no one understood, but everyone laughed. Mrs. Johnson kissed Marina on the cheek, whispering, "I knew from day one that you two were meant for each other." Paula hugged David. Finally, the tension between you two was becoming unbearable at the office. But the most important reaction came from Lily. She ran to Marina and hugged her with a strength that surprised all the adults present. "Now, are you going to be my real mum?" she asked, her eyes shining. Marina knelt down to be at the girl's level. "Lily, I will never try to replace your mom, but I will love you as if you were my biological daughter, always." "I love you too, Aunt Marina. Can I call you Mom Marina?" "You can call me whatever you want, my love." In December, they got married in a simple ceremony at Central Park, surrounded only by close family and friends from Tecmac, who had become a chosen family. Lily was the flower girl, wearing a yellow dress she had picked out herself, carrying white rose petals in a wicker basket. The wedding was officiated by a judge who was a friend of Dr. Robert, who made a point of mentioning in his speech, "It's rare to see a couple who has faced so many storms and emerged stronger. David, Marina, and Lily, you've proven that family is what we build with love, not just what we inherit." The honeymoon was in Malibu, in a beach house rented for a week. Lily built sandcastles with Marina, while David grilled fish in the late afternoon. They were simple moments, but they carried the weight of genuine happiness. "Dad," Lily said one afternoon as the three walked on the beach at sunset, "is our family like the others now?" David and Marina looked at each other, smiling. "No, Princess," David replied. "Our family is better, because it was chosen." 6 months later, in May 2025, they organized another county fair, this time in the spacious backyard of the house they bought in Brooklyn. It was an old, renovated house with 3 bedrooms, an office where David could work when necessary, and a kitchen large enough for all of Lily's culinary experiments. The fair brought together all the people who had been important in their journey. Mrs. Johnson arrived with her grandchildren. Klaus brought his German wife who had finally moved to America. Paula came with a new boyfriend, and even Dr. Robert showed up with his family. "A year ago," Marina said to David as they watched Lily teach the square dance steps to the younger kids, "I was at a county fair, trying to figure out if I could be happy again. Now I know the answer." "And what is it?" "Happiness is not something we achieve alone. It's something we build together." David pulled her to the makeshift dance floor where other families were dancing to country music. As they twirled under the colorful banners, with Lily laughing and clapping beside them, David realized he had found something he didn't even know he was looking for. Not just a wife or a mother for Lily. He had found a life partner, someone who turned challenges into adventures, problems into opportunities for growth. "Marina," he whispered as they danced, "remember when Lily said the goldfish would be named Hope?" "I remember." "I think she was right. It all started with hope at that first county fair." Marina smiled, kissing him softly. "And it ends with certainty at this one." In the distance, fireworks began to explode in the sky over Los Angeles. It wasn't an official holiday, just someone celebrating a personal victory, but David decided to interpret it as a symbol. Sometimes life surprises us with happy endings when we least expect it. Sometimes a simple gesture of kindness on a warm afternoon can change everything. And sometimes the family we have always dreamed of is waiting for us in the most unexpected place. Lily ran to hug the two, interrupting the romantic dance with the naturalness of a child who finally felt secure. "Can we dance together, all three?" she asked. And so they did. Three people who became a family, dancing under the stars of Los Angeles, surrounded by friends who also became family, celebrating not just a county fair, but a lifetime of love built on a solid foundation of respect, partnership, and hope.